Here we go. Well, you got to have a positive mental attitude. That is a huge problem. You've heard the saying that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Well, a club is only where you meet a club is only where you show off to try to attract whores or try to hopefully leave with one at the end of the night. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not criticizing him. I've that's fine. That's Shaman Omar here. But that's not where if you want to communicate, right? That's not the winning formula. Yeah, so it's yeah. Well, it's a numbers game. Regardless, you can't. It, you know, it's a numbers game. You have to put the effort in. You know. No, you don't have to. That's dry humor. Dry humor is a very successful way. People love dry humor. Do you are you how are you with eye contact in person? Okay. Well, I'm back to the you miss all the shots you don't take because if you've got no problem with the eye contact, how tall are you? Okay. Okay. How many times did you not get rejected? You just had a girlfriend until December. Okay, that counts too. If horse at a club work count, then right. If not picking up a girl at a nightclub counts, then certainly. Your audience will probably appreciate this. I got the winning formula for you, T Jump. Alex, we're not live yet because I don't want to share this with my audience, but I got the winning formula for T Jump. The winning formula is called Bogota, Colombia, where your dollar is going to be worth like $60, and you'll have a whole house of them, right? If you like, if you yeah, but I mean, listen, hey, I'm not an expert on Thailand because I'm not really into Asian girls or boys for that matter. But if you are into Asian people, I'm assuming Thailand. But seem s- okay. Well, you could probably get some great deals on real estate there right now. You can go open your church division there, right? Oh, you want to talk about the church too?
Omar, let's
Yes,
go
sir.
live, guys. Yeah,
Okay, hold on one second. Go start it.
yeah, yeah. I'll wait you.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's see here. I've been to Ukraine 15 times in 2 years pre-COVID. Yeah, serving medicine. 3, 2. Okay.
Please
Here we
start.
go.
Unchained.
That's a very big disclaimer. letting people know that if we say anything controversial, that's the reason why we're here. All right. Free Thought Unchained, the podcast. I'm here with Tom Jump. He is an atheist philosopher, he's a streamer, and he is single, ladies and gentlemen. T Jump, how are you, brother?
Ups and downs.
Ups and downs. Yeah. He's also 6'2".
Yeah.
Which is important.
It's important.
So,
facts.
It's important. I haven't lied yet, right?
What's the thing? 6 feet, 6 inches, 6 figures. We got that.
Yeah. Of course, it's better to have more in some of those areas for sure. At least double, close to double. On
close to double.
On two of them.
Uh,
So listen, I'm here with T Jump. T Jump is a philosopher. He is an amazing debater, and I have watched a lot of his streams recently over the last couple weeks. Primarily, it seems that he is debating a lot of Christian apologists as well as just generalized people. His main topic seems to be the existence of God, yay or nay. In this conversation, of course, we're going to get into that, of course, but I would like to dive into a specific philosophy that he has been using as the foundation of his belief system, and that is called objective morality. I've heard him going into it, beginning the process, and I continuously, in all of these debates, hear him get interrupted, and it's a very challenging thing for a lot of people to think that there could be something that connects everything together that we can all understand, appreciate, and that's existed since the beginning of at least mankind. It doesn't actually rise up to a concept of a singular force in the form of a God or universal creator. T-Jump, do you have a quick overview, so to speak, of objective morality?
Sure. So objective morality is objective means stands independent truth. It means true independent of what anybody thinks about it. Morality is typically understood in the subjective context that it's a societal construct or cultural construct, in which case it would only be true based on what people thought about it. So objective morality is the opposite of that, where it's true based off of something independent of any opinions, thoughts, intuitions, feelings that any humans have or any consciousness has. So it's like a figment of nature, a law of physics, a priori abstract. It's a truth of reality kind of a thing. That's what it means for objective morality, that it's true, independent of what anyone thinks about it.
Now,
My view.
Say it again.
So my view is that
yes,
if we see a pattern, like we can look at the patterns in our moral intuitions. Like you can say, oh, punching a baby is wrong, that's immoral, and we can see that pattern consists throughout cultures, throughout society. Like, yeah, most people think punching a baby is wrong, but that wouldn't be enough to establish that morality was objective. That would just say that we all on this earth have the same general idea of what morality is. The real reason to think that morality may be objective is that when we look at the progress of moral intuitions across history and across cultures, they all progress in the exact same direction. To give one example is like if you have a doctor in the 1800s and he's trying to save you, suppose you got shot in the leg, the best he can do is cut your leg off. So he's cutting your leg off. It's going to be a huge inconvenience to you. It's pretty bad, pretty painful, but it's the best the doctor can do to save your life. And so it's moral for the doctor to cut your leg off. But if we compare that to a doctor today, a modern doctor, if a modern doctor cut your leg off, you'd sue him for malpractice. It'd be horribly immoral. You'd be like, you get millions of dollars in compensation. And the reason is that modern doctors have access to antibiotics and other means to solve or alleviate the concern without causing the unnecessary harm of like cutting your leg off. And so there's this pattern of that as you gain power, technological, medical, wisdom, whatever, you are less justified to cause harm. And so the 1800s doctor who has a minimal amount of power is more justified to cause harm, like cutting your leg off, than a modern doctor would be because he has less power. And you can find that pattern in pretty much everywhere in society. And if we continue it, and then lots of other examples as well. But if we accentuate that pattern to its extreme, it would mean that if you had infinite power, you'd never be justified to cause harm to anyone. Now that's a pattern. Whether or not this pattern is objective is still up for debate, but we can see this pattern. We can see this pattern is consistent across cultures. And so we could infer that if this pattern is there, and if it's consistent across many different fields or many different areas of morality, which it is, there's many different moral dilemmas and philosophical problems and moral principles that all have similar patterns to them, then we can infer that there's some underlying cause to this consistent pattern. And this underlying cause could be society or culture, or it could be like a law of physics or law of nature that we haven't discovered yet. And I think it's going to be the law of nature kind. I think that this pattern of morality we see isn't only going to be present in humans or on Earth, but all life anywhere in the universe, all consciousness is going to follow the same moral patterns and discover the same moral truths in the same way that they would discover the same mathematical truths or the same truths about physics. I think that this pattern of morality that we see is endemic to consciousness in a way, and that even AI, when it's finally discovered, AGI, that's true artificial intelligence, will probably discover or follow the same patterns of morality that we see in human nature and the progress in human intuition. And if that's the case, then we can no longer say that it's purely evolutionary because AI didn't evolve. And if we see the same pattern of morality in other species, like or other planets, aliens, for example, then we can't say it's evolutionary, we can't say it's just a product of human or evolution, because it's present in species across the universe. And so if those two things are true, and I think they will likely be true, then we have good reason to believe that there is some underlying force guiding the moral intuitions of conscious agents beyond just society and culture.
And this is a plane, like the moral plane, so to speak. Does this expand throughout the known universe, or is this primarily experienced here in this like third dimensional world, so to speak?
Well, I'd say be true of all conscious agents, regardless of how they existed. So if there is other dimensional beings, I'd say they're probably going to feel the exact same amount of morality and be bound by it in the same way that they're bound by the laws of logic.
Got it. Now, so for example, like with the animal kingdom, you see a predator animal will pretty much only attack and kill what it can eat, or what it can eat for its entire family, or its pride, so to speak, right? But with humans, though, it's a little bit different, though, isn't it? Like with humans, you're saying the polarity, it's basically like the principle of polarity, where the moral fabric goes both positively and negatively.
I'm not sure what you mean. So because
you're saying it's a consistent moral compass, so to speak, both positive and negative through time. We're not just saying only like what's morally right, and we also know what's morally wrong equally.
Oh yeah. So immoral actions I would define as an involuntary imposition of will, forcing people or forcing conscious agents to do things they don't consent to doing. And morality would be the inverse of that. It'd be consensual assistance of will, so doing things to help people achieve what their goals are, more or less. And so we definitely understand both the moral and the immoral aspects in the same patterns. Regarding what you said about like animals and what we kill and what we don't kill, I think that the fact that animals kill, like for example, for food, is being a product of evolution, is essentially no different than what humans do. It's just to a higher conscious level. Like I was going
to say they have a better moral foundation than we do. I was saying they pretty much kill as a fight or flight and to feed. That's about it. They don't. You'll never see a lion literally build a castle or attempt to conquer or to kill more for no reason, right? Other than what it declares it is. And the biggest predator would be like a lion, right?
Well, actually, we do actually see many animals, specifically cats, killing for fun, playing with their food. So they like, oh, there's a mouse, I'm gonna go catch it and kill it, with no intention to eat it, with no intention to like, yeah. Well, same with big cats. Big cats do the same thing. It's just when they see small furry things run, they have a tendency to want to chase it, kind of like the laser. The laser cats will chase a laser.
Sure, yeah.
That works on big cats as well as does small cats. It's more that there's that innate desire to chase and catch things, and if they're not hungry and they still want to chase and catch things, they'll still kill things, with no practical application for it. And that's true of many different animals. Chimpanzees especially kill things for sport, and baboons will kill things for territorial reasons.
Maybe they're just showing off to the opposite sex.
That can sometimes be the case, but most of the time, no. It's mostly just like they're playing with it and they smash it.
Yeah, play with it to death.
Yep.
So how would you contend with like the moral differences that can occur over a specific time and space? Like, for example, if you look at like Canaan, for example, right? The land of Canaan, you have the kingdom of Israel. So you have like the foundation of like the Moses and the commandment law of the Abrahamic faiths that I think like 5.5 billion people on this earth all subscribe to this same moral code, so to speak. But at the same time, you had people in the exact same lands sacrificing children to Moloch, which they also deemed to be a god. They thought that was also righteous. Like, how do we contend with the perception of righteousness or good?
Well, there's, like, say, for example, global warming. Global warming has, people will say, "Oh, but there's snow. How can there be global warming?" There's a difference in individual temperatures all over the world. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. But that doesn't matter to the pattern. The overall pattern is still going, things are getting warmer. And so even though there's a whole bunch of differences individually, a bunch of these changing ups and downs and peaks and troughs of the graph, that would be the same as the peaks and troughs in moral intuitions among cultures. But the pattern is going to be the same. Like even say Saudi Arabia recently, in the past, I think it was 5 or 10 years, made it legal for women to drive.
Well, it was a test run at first. They did a trial run.
Yeah,
they didn't just jump right into the deep end of the pool.
Sure.
They issued a certain amount of driver's licenses, and it was like a few years, like a test run.
Yeah, but that's like Saudi Arabia feminism. Like there's progress there. So
they even literally did. By the way, I have very close friends in Saudi Arabia. It was a test run.
Yeah,
it was literally.
Well, so there's the fact that the pattern is the same throughout all cultures, the directionality that it's going in is the same throughout all cultures, is what really makes there a reason to think that there's evidence of some kind of guiding force. Even though there can be a diversity of ups and downs, troughs and peaks to the graph like global warming, doesn't invalidate the idea that there is a fundamental pattern there. It wouldn't contradict in any way that there is a fundamental pattern, any more so than the fact that it snows contradicts global warming.
But the Earth, even though I would say that the Earth is like a collective conscious ecosystem being, consciousness in some aspect, if we bring it down like to a microcosm, like into like the life of an individual, right? There, throughout the entire history of the world, we have always had those cultures that were, eating humans and sacrificing babies, right? I mean, we have it today.
Yeah, but if they tend towards the same direction, it's the same thing as having Antarctica. Antarctica is a really cold place. Does that mean global warming is fake? Well, no, because the presence of Antarctica, the ice is melting. It's getting smaller. The fact that it exists wouldn't be evidence against the pattern of global warming. So the fact that that some people have done lots of immoral things and had immoral societies wouldn't be evidence against a pattern of objective morality any more than the fact that Antarctica would be evidence against global warming. There can be a great many differences in the individual views on morality, but as long as the trend is the same, then the evidence for an objective pattern remains.
And so what would be, when we were in a society, like society at large, let's say that we were able to wrap the entire world around a collective objective morality, what would be the penalties? Would it like literally an eye for an eye, like hand for a hand, that type of thing? Or how would we gauge like the construct of penalty?
Well, penalty would still be immoral. So like if my view of morality is correct, it's a truth statement. It's saying objective morality is this. It's not saying we should punish anybody. That's a whole different thing than morality. That's more like a justice system. Morality is just saying it is true that this is the good or the bad. And so once you know what the good or the bad is, how you should react to that, how you should punish people or reward people for doing things differently is a completely different question. And so my morality is simply saying, here is the answer to the question, what is the correct good and the correct bad understanding of reality? And I think that the ways to try to answer the justice question of how we should use that information to inform our decisions about society is a pragmatic one. We should make pragmatic limitations that are based on what influences people or what helps build a better society or helps move us closer to the best of all possible worlds, as I call it, the perfect moral world. But that part isn't going to be in itself moral at all. It's like putting people in prison is immoral. It's immoral to confine people against their will into a tight enclosed space. But it's necessary because if you don't put them in prison, then they will harm innocent people. And so you do a small immoral action of imprisoning a perpetrator in order to prevent a bigger immoral action of the harm that they would cause to innocent people. And so the justice system is itself immoral because we are confining people against their will. We are doing involuntary impositions of will on people.
So what you're saying basically is you're saying that it's regardless of right. You're saying that there's moral and immoral period, like black and white, like night and day. And just if someone, for example, were to kill someone, to rob them and kill them, the taking that person's life is still immoral because taking life is immoral, but it's justified as a counterbalance for the immoral action perpetrated on the innocent, so to speak.
Well, so like putting someone in prison would be immoral. It's immoral to put someone in prison, but it's justified because if you don't put them in prison, they're going to kill somebody. And so because there is a bigger immoral action which is going to happen, which is the murdering of the innocent person, you are justified in doing an immoral thing to put that person in prison because it's the lesser evil. Still evil, it's still immoral to put someone in prison, but it's the lesser evil.
So it's a justified immorality.
Yeah, justified immoral action.
A justified immoral action. Okay. And those could be pretty much, and how would they be equated like across the board, like on an even scale, for example? I mean, this is very biblical. Like, someone steals, you cut the hand off, two people charged with adultery. According to that moral fabric of that society, you kill both people. Someone were to kill someone from your family, then that person would have to make retribution. You killed my second son. He's the second most important to my farm. Okay, we'll give you 14 sheep. No, 18. Oh, you don't have 18 sheep? Fine, your daughter, right? And we're talking like this type of, how would we regulate everything? I'm trying to determine. Like how would we bring it back to the people and leave the courts alone, or how do you see it?
Well, the courts would be the same pretty much. The point of the courts is to act as a social bulwark to make society function better, and so courts are good overall. They do their job.
It has gone overboard. The idea that you're going to put someone in prison for a leaf, or for up to 2 pounds of a leaf, for example. So it is definitely. I'm not advocating for the current system in any way whatsoever. I would rather go on some level biblical, especially with heinous acts. I agree. Putting people in prison for long periods of time, sometimes that's better than the previous situation you pull them from, right? But I'm
sure. So I would think that the best way to approach the criminal justice system is with evidence. What system works best to give the citizens the confidence to believe in the system and want to be a part of it, to invest their money and time in being a part of the system, and deters criminals from being criminals. And our criminal justice system, relatively speaking, in terms of history, is extremely good at that. It's very bad compared to like the rest of the world, like Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark. They have much better criminal justice systems by all measures of evidence.
But they have lower level criminality and a less diverse population as well.
Lower recidivism rates, so like lower rates of people going back into prison after they leave. And so that's the key, is that how we measure an effective criminal justice system is based on pragmatism. It's not based on objective morality. Whether or not it's moral doesn't matter. What matters is, does the criminal justice system work as a way to lower the crime rate in society? And I would not go back to a biblical type of criminal justice system because it just doesn't work as well. It doesn't prevent crimes. For example, say we take the biblical route of, if someone's caught stealing, you cut their hand off. If
that's a little extreme, how about we take the biblical route that if someone's kidnaps or molests a child, let's start with that. That's something we would probably agree protecting the innocent is something that's a more important thing than someone stealing an apple, right?
Sure, but the point of this analogy is that in the Bible, the punishment for theft is cutting someone's hand off. But let's say someone sees you're stealing an apple and someone sees you. Because the punishment is so severe, the cost to killing that person is actually about the same. So like, if you're going to get your hand cut off and your life is pretty much going to end anyway, because you can't function without your hand, you're essentially going to die. Then if someone sees you, killing that person is going to lead to about the same punishment. You're going to die either way. And so there's no justification rationally for you not to kill them and steal the apple. Whereas in the modern social justice system, if you steal an apple, you'll pay a fine. You might spend a couple days in prison, but that would be significantly less bad than if you kill the person. If you kill the person, you'll spend probably the rest of your life in prison. And so there's a big difference there in the way that past criminal justice systems punish to a degree that doing extra crimes is incentivized, whereas the current criminal justice systems don't have that severity of punishments. And so there isn't as much of incentivizing further crimes in order to hide your smaller crimes. And so the current system is much better at mitigating perpetual crimes than past historical systems.
These are small things, though. We should pick something that's for example, we're talking about stealing an apple. I mean, just a few hundred years ago, if you killed the king's deer, you could be killed in England at that time, and that gives rise to Robin Hood, which I think we probably both cheer for. So let's pick something that's like something that is more intense, like for example, like kidnapping or murdering a child, right? So
how would you implement the biblical solution for that differently than the modern solution?
How would I? Oh, I can explain that very easily. If we're saying we know for sure this person molested a child, like 100% for sure. Oh, I would chop his dick off and I would put it in his mouth and tape it and leave him in the town square for at least a day and a night. And then from there, we'd brand his forehead and let him loose or kill him. I don't know, one or the other.
Well, so now you have the same problem. So let's say the person does.
I think we would reduce that problem pretty fast here, brother.
No. The problem here is that if they commit one crime,
the problem's going to disappear within one. If we put that on television one time, I think that would be.
That would have absolutely zero impact on the amount of crime, because crimes like pedophilia, sex crimes, aren't based on cultural conditioning. It's genetics. There's just some people, because of DNA, because of evolution, are attracted to people of different age ranges. It's a spectrum. Some people are attracted to.
I agree with you, but I would add one extra thing with that. I also believe that it has to do with feeding evil spirits, for sure.
I don't believe that is the case. I don't think there's any evidence in the scientific community to support that.
Do you believe in evil in spirits?
No.
Zero spirits.
Nope. I think that
in any form. Hold on, real quick. We'll get back to that, but just to clarify, spirits in the form of good spirits, bad spirits, angels, demons, nothing.
Nope. I am a hardcore science advocate. So if you want evidence for something, or if you want a reason to believe something, you first need to pass the test of having a methodology that can differentiate imagination from reality. If it can't pass that test, then it's imaginary. But I do want to get back to like the original question you said. Like,
we'll get back to that later.
The point of, if you decide to punish someone like a pedophile with something as extreme that could cause them as much pain or death, to be equivalent to death, then there's no way for them to distinguish between that act and that act plus killing someone. So if someone sees them commit the crime, do they have any reason not to just immediately kill that person? if you have a really, really harsh punishment for the first crime that is essentially equivalent to death, then they have no reason not to commit every single crime possible. And so when you have really, really, really harsh punishments for things like physical disfigurement and torture, that incentivizes people to commit further crimes to try to avoid that. That's the problem. That's why when you have small punishments like putting people in prison for a while, it doesn't incentivize the further secondary, tertiary crimes that they would commit to try to avoid prison, which could like killing the witnesses essentially. That's why the modern kinds of criminal justice systems work better than the historical kinds, because it doesn't incentivize follow-ups and people can live with just going to prison for a while and they're not so desperate to just get out of that they would just murder everyone around them.
But if the punishment is, let's say, for example, in our justice system in the United States, I'm in Miami, right? So we're both in America. In the justice system, I've been seeing that these people that are doing what's considered white collar crimes, like, financial crimes, they're getting very serious. Now, of course, let's say someone's getting 26 years for stealing $8 million, right? We would say there's no victim, and then the government says yes, the corporation is an entity. An entity is a being, so to speak, and that's the victim, right? And they're getting like 24 years for stealing like $8 million. They're getting it significantly lower. Well, actually, more. It was $26 million, 26 years they gave him, and the guy returned like $8 million and got 8 years off or something wild like this. Now, that's going to deter a lot of people from making the initial crime. But if someone goes and steals, like if I ask you and we answer these questions like honest as possible, if you could steal $50 million and only go to jail for 1 year, would you do it? Would you take the deal?
Sure.
That's sure.
Yeah. I mean, like, would you work for a year for $50 million? Sure. Yeah.
That's reducing it to ridiculous. And guess what? I would say the majority of people would. And I know people that have a few $1 million here that probably would do it too, to say, hey, I can take the next 15 years off after that. And by the way, for the audience, you wouldn't be going to some hardcore, unless you have violent crimes. If you have violent crimes in your record, you would go to a hardcore prison. But if you're going there for stealing money, you're going to pretty much a white collar prison. It's not going to be playing chess and arguing with people about watching recipe cooking shows. You're not.
What is your point? So the fact that the punishment doesn't fit the crime, if the
punishment is too small, then it doesn't deter people.
Well, the point isn't to deter the criminals. Punishments just don't work that way. It's very rare that they deter the criminals. The point of the criminal justice system is to stop retaliation by individuals towards other individuals. One of the things that early societies, the biggest problems they had was Robin Hood-esque violence, where if you kill my brother, I'm going to kill your brother. If you steal my cattle, I'm going to steal your cattle. That caused such a huge economic problem that stifled economic growth for societies that they wanted to create, I forget what Steven Pinker called it, some kind of a monopolization of violence. I think that's what he called it, monopolization of the use of violence. So it's only done by the police, the judge, etc., not done by the people. And the only goal there is to create enough of a sense of trust in the system that justice will be served in order to make society function. The goal isn't actually to deter the crimes. The goal isn't actually to punish people who did the crimes. The goal is just to make society function. That's it. True justice, true equality, those aren't the goals. The goal is just to make the economic system continue to churn more effectively. That's the point of the criminal justice system. And it does that. It's very good at that. And so if you're trying to say that you would modify the criminal justice system to make it focused on actual justice or actual parodies of matching the crime to proportionate to proportion the punishment to the crime, I think that's an interesting idea, but I don't think it really matches the point of why the criminal justice was there.
So I can explain where the thought process came from. So if we said like the world is going to operate under an objective morality, right? And it would be pretty easy to take 10 different people from 10 different parts of the world and all lay down a basic moral foundation, right? So like this is a basic moral foundation of what we all agree is right and wrong. And so if we pick the wrong side, one of the things that most people in the world would agree to is the protecting of innocence, and the most innocent would be an innocent child. So if we were say then by that train of thought, one of the worst things that you could do is injure, cause harm, and perhaps death or permanent disfigurement to an innocent child. And so
Sure.
under the objective morality concept, there would need to be something in my mind. There would have to be something as clearly defined as a punishment, which I guess punishment would still be some form of deterrence on some level, because we can't rely on just the moral guidance within humanity. Obviously, we've seen that that doesn't take us so far. Like we would have to have something that actually is almost immediate justice on some level, like some sort of framework that would rank crimes, right? Like I don't think that's
well. Again, this is a totally separate question of morality. This is just not relevant to morality at all. This is about pragmatic social conditioning. How do you make a functioning society, which has nothing to do with morality? You can make a functioning society that's horribly, horribly immoral, which is just having like millions of slaves and pointing guns at them like the Egyptians did.
Got it.
So the question
I was
of
talking
what
about idealistically though, with under what we're talking about, how would that look? I'm not. Yes, you're absolutely right. The Soviet Union operated very functional, and it wasn't probably the best, right? It's communist China, et cetera, Egypt, as you described, for sure. I'm not saying we could just take the slaves and point guns at them. Yeah, for sure. That will work for a certain amount of time. But I'm talking about in the idealistic expression of objective morality as a fundamental social construct that is accepted within a society.
So if we lived in a morally perfect world, a morally perfect world would be it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing. It's just impossible. The laws of physics would just be like, this can't be done. That would be a morally perfect world where you don't even need to create laws because it's just impossible for it to happen in the first place. And so if the moral law was, say, the most powerful law of all physical laws, like suppose gravity was the most powerful of all physical laws, everything would be collapsed into a giant black hole in the center of the universe, and that would be it. So if we supposed my moral principle was the most powerful guiding law in the universe, it would just be physically impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing.
There would be a force field.
Essentially, more or less.
Yeah, pretty much. There would be a force field. It wouldn't happen. Then I think we would be in like Christian and Islamic heaven, because nothing bad can happen there. Then we would be in the biblical heaven at that point.
I don't think so, because the biblical heaven has a number of problems.
Has no free will.
Well, it's free will isn't really that important to me. What matters is in the biblical heaven, God can do whatever he wants to you. He can still crush you. He can still destroy you, send you to hell, whatever.
In biblical earth, they can do the same thing. That's the problem.
Yeah. So the difference between my model of morality and, say, the Christian model of morality is that God would have no more power over you than Bob from down the street. God has a conscious will. You have a conscious will, and it's impossible for any conscious will to force any other conscious will to do anything it doesn't consent to doing. And so God would have no more power over you than a potato.
So even if, let's say, there is the angelic realm, even if that angelic realm exists, it would not have the ability or the right to apply any form of pressure, influence on any other being, regardless of if it's an ant or a squirrel, to impose its will on another conscious being, living being, conscious being.
Yes. So it'd be impossible for any conscious being of any kind to force any other conscious being to do something they didn't consent to doing.
And obviously that's not the reality here upon the earth. Do you think that's how it is in the universe, or the universe is not operating from that system?
I think that would be the culmination of if the moral law was instantiated to the maximum degree. So like gravity is not maximized. Gravity is not the only force that does anything in the universe. There are other forces.
Yes.
Gravity is actually pretty weak. It doesn't do everything. The moral force
Agreed.
is the same thing. It's not a force that causes or forces everyone to be moral. It's just there, kind of like gravity, applying this very subtle kind of pattern that we see throughout society. And so because the moral law is not superseding on everything else with a maximum force that causes everything to force it to be moral, then you don't have a world that is perfectly moral. Just like because gravity doesn't force everything to be crushed into a big ball, you have a lot more diversity in the things that can be experienced. And so I think that the point of my model of morality isn't to say we live in a perfect world. It's just to say that there is a correct answer to the question, what is objective morality? Just like to say there is a correct answer to what is the correct mathematic equation or something.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that people are going to use it. People do lots of stupid things and they don't use math, but there is a correct answer to the question. That's what's important.
You're saying that pi exists even if people aren't aware of the usage of pi in everyday, et cetera, it still exists.
Yeah, even if they deny it, they say the radius of a circle is 3. Like,
yeah, that's the pi is like dinosaurs, the devil's creation to make you right.
Yeah.
Okay, but so let me ask you. So in that case, so in essence, if we all agree that it would be really cool to fly, and gravity is the only reason I can't just fly away, then gravity is immoral.
Yes, it's not just people. People are not even the most common source of impositions of will. So like the thing that kills more humans than anything else is nature. Heart disease, cancer, earthquakes. Those cause more involuntary impositions of will than all human caused deaths combined. So like if we take Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, all of them combined is like less than a single digit percentage of the humans who have ever lived. Because there have been about 210 billion humans who have ever lived.
Yes.
And war has killed less than 1 billion humans who have ever lived.
Yeah.
So, and currently there's about 7 to 8 who are in the universe. So what happened to the other 90? Well, it was nature that killed them. So nature causes more involuntary impositions of will than anything else. Nature is the greatest evil in the universe that we need to overcome in order to achieve a moral world. And so, yes, it would be physically impossible not only for other people to force you to do things you don't consent to doing, but also for nature to force you to do things you don't consent to doing. So if you don't consent to age, you don't age. If you don't consent to get cancer, you don't get cancer. If you don't consent to go blind, you don't go blind. If you don't consent to die, you don't die. That is a morally perfect world.
But in this worldview, for example, gravity in essence would be a justified immorality.
Well, it would be an immorality. I don't think it'd be justified. There's no.
Well, we wouldn't have this. We would be killed. There would be if gravity didn't exist upon this earth, then we would immediately fly off into space, and then that would be worse than the current status, right?
Well, it's only assuming that you couldn't change those things too. So if you don't consent to die in space, you don't die in space. If you don't consent to suffocate or need air, you don't.
You're going ultra universal.
Yeah,
I understand. You're going straight conscious, universal consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
The highest plane.
Yeah, your consciousness determines what you get to experience or what you're limited by, and nothing else does. Not nature, not other people, not God. Your consciousness. That's it.
What is your view on like a holographic universe concept?
I don't think there's any reason to believe it's true. So like the holographic principle is the idea that black holes, all of the information within a sphere can be represented on the external surface of the sphere. That's the holographic principle. So the idea in like the holographic universe is that everything in our universe is actually just a projection of what's going on the surface of a black hole. I don't think that there's no evidence for this. It's just an interesting idea. And so I don't think any more so that we should believe in that than we should in leprechauns, essentially.
And with leprechauns, you would also expand that into the concept of God, for example.
Yes. I'd say God would probably be less plausible than leprechauns because God has lots of other extenuating properties that have no basis in reality. Leprechauns would require much less ontological commitment about new stuff that could exist than a God would.
And what is your highest understanding of this concept of God?
I don't know how to answer what the highest would be.
Or
The
no,
most,
your like, I guess your highest or vast. I don't know.
well, so
Whichever
like
one
the
you want.
most common idea of a God is a supermind. Uh, Essentially, the maximization of a mind that has control over all other stuff. And it's being fundamental to all of reality. That's the idea, essentially. That
You're talking about like the William Walker Atkinson concept of the universal mind.
I'm talking about like Yahweh. Um, most concepts of God are just a super brain, a superhuman, a superman dude, and that's it.
Yeah,
Just,
we're the star of our own reality shows, of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
Zeus has to look like a bearded Greek man. Santa Claus to us looks like white Santa Claus. The Persians have their own version of him. He's darker, and et cetera, of course.
right. And so that concept of a God is the most common. The deepest or the largest concept of God would probably be more fundamental to saying God is nature. Pantheism, naturalistic pantheism would probably be, I think, the most interesting definition of a God, I think.
By pantheism, where like the oldest pantheism would be like animism, right?
I don't think so. I think animism would be different because pantheism is like Spinoza. Spinoza, the idea that nature is God, nature is fundamental, nature, energy, matter, and all of
I'm
this
pretty
stuff.
sure that's animism.
Well, animism is like, I'm pretty sure, animals, like related to how animal souls can be fundamental to reality or something like that. How we relate animal nature to the fundamental nature of reality.
Yeah, it seems that it seems like the oldest understanding of that would be animism, pantheism, and the force of like the elemental aspects of things, right? But the elemental aspects of the forces is one of the oldest stories. I mean, are you familiar with? Obviously, I've heard you discuss a lot of the biblical theological perspectives, but are you familiar with like other things outside of the Abrahamic faiths, like the Greeks' perspectives of like creation or the Sumerians or any of that stuff? Interest you at all?
Yes, I'm familiar with a number of them. I'm like the Greeks, the interesting view is gonna be like Platonism. Platonism, the idea that there's some fundamental abstracts and the abstracts guide the nature of reality. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
But
regarding the Greeks, I'm talking about like even older, like how they were the Titans, which were like the elemental forces, and then they gave birth to the
Kronos,
gods.
Zeus, yeah.
Yeah, no, but pre-Saturn, Saturn would be like old Father Time. Would be like the father of Saturn. Would be like um, the elementals in essence, like the substances that formed, that gave way for creation to materialize into independent conscious beings, as opposed to substances like in Al-Kemet, Old Kingdom Egypt, they referred to the substance like that we would call like dark matter was called the ma'at. And the ma'at was like the divine feminine substance. You could say, you could look at, for example, you could look at the entire universe. Everything that's ever been created, every planet that's imploded, exploded, is all the yolk inside of the cosmic egg that still hasn't hatched. And that yolk inside of that would be called the ma'at. That's the way I like to look at the universe.
I don't think that the different kinds of stories of the origin of the universe are any particularly more or less grounded in reality. Like I don't think dark matter or dark energy has any correlates that are similar in other ideologies, because I think those are very specific phenomena. Like dark matter is the fact that there's more gravitational pull on universes than should be there. Like of all the matter we see, why is it the case that the stuff on the outside of the disk of a universe or galaxy is spinning and still remaining a part of the galaxy and not just floating off into nothingness? That's dark matter. Dark energy is the fact that the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light. And why is it keep expanding faster? I don't think there's anything that's anything like that in any religious document.
Well, I just described one in Al-Kemet, the concept of ma'at, M-A-A-T.
How does that relate to dark matter or dark energy?
Well, if we look at the universe, I mean, do you when we say dark matter, we both have the same understanding of dark matter, right? The substance and the You're agreeing that you understand dark matter, right? We're not arguing does dark matter exist, correct?
Right. Yeah. So dark matter is
Okay.
the
Just
fact
making
that
sure.
there is extra
for
gravity in
example,
galaxies.
we know that something must exist because gravity would dictate that the entire universe would implode or explode in like a millisecond, right? So there has to be this jello-like substance in between planets, right? For everything to kind of hold in its balance on some level. And in Al-Kemet, I'm saying in ancient Egypt, they referred to this substance as called ma'at.
Well, that sounds
They
more
were
like the ether. So like the ether is the idea.
Yeah, you could say ether for sure. Except they actually they didn't worship it, they didn't pray to it, they didn't have festivals to it nor temples. They were just understood that this thing had to exist. It had a divine feminine essence to it. So the Ma'at was a divine feminine essence, although it was not personified in any form. And they also attributed universal wisdom to it, like foundational universal wisdom to it, which I don't think they actually described in detail too much. So that's a very old. When I say in Old Kingdom Egypt is before, the name Egypt wasn't. Egypt is a Hellenistic name. So when everyone talks about ancient Egypt, they're just talking about Middle Kingdom Egypt during the Hellenistic period post Alexander the Great. I'm talking Old Kingdom Al-Kemet.
I still don't know how that would relate to dark matter. Like ether, yeah, sure. You could make an argument that that's similar to ether, but I don't think that would be similar. Thing. Well, no, ether and dark matter are completely different. Ether is the idea that there is an actual substance that permeates the universe for which light can travel through. Dark matter is just the idea that there's extra matter, extra gravity, or something that causes extra gravity in galaxies. That's it. It's just it is nothing that permeates anything. It's just there's more stuff there than what we can see. Just like black holes could explain dark matter. It's not.
From my understanding, dark matter is the substance that we cannot see, touch, or measure that must exist. Otherwise, gravity would take charge. That's my understanding of dark matter.
Well, no, gravity is already in charge. The dark matter is just not the fully, fact that when we see galaxies spin, like their disks, they spin just like our planet. They're spinning really, really fast. And at the rate that they're spinning, the stars on the outside are in a tidal lock spin, just like the moon is around Earth. And so the things on the outside go around at significantly faster than things on the inside, but they all seem to be going at approximately the same speed, which is weird. It's weird. If that was happening, they should get thrown off kind of like a sling that you let go of.
Sure.
So it's just the idea of what's holding those things in the galaxy when they're going so fast. They can still stay in the galaxy without it. There's not like the universe would fall apart without this stuff. There's totally ways to make the universe work without dark matter. It's not that significant. It's just interesting because we can't see it. That's it. There's not anything particularly special about it. Yeah. Ether is something very different. Ether is the idea that there's actually a permeable membrane that exists for which light can travel through, that is through all things and holds all things together. That sounds more like what you're talking about.
But it's interesting that they figured this out in Old Kingdom Egypt.
Well, I think it's
attributed.
Go ahead.
No, and attributed, like you would say, you would have this like ma'at, and then you would have the like elemental forces, and then through those forces, there would be this creation, right? This creation that would eventually create this thing that we call the universe. It's interesting that they had an understanding of these things.
Well, I think it's
pre-Yahweh, pre-Bible.
I think it's more that there's a limited number of options. So like, there's two options for the universe. Either it had a beginning or it didn't have a beginning. Those are your two options. So there's lots of different mythological stories, some which have a beginning, some which don't have a beginning. Like Hinduism, where there's the Brahman, that is like the fundamental force that exists and was never created. And you have
Brahman's new. Brahman's shit. Brahmanism is new. Well, Brahmanism is what happened when the rishi, the wealthy and the priest class decided to get together and join forces of their gods and make one thing called Brahman, so that way they can confuse everyone together. Just like how the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit Trinity was created by solidified through Constantine's Rome and then put out to the public. It's
well,
unified.
sure. The origin doesn't really matter to the point. The point is just that there was two possibilities. There's a beginning to the universe, or it was eternal. And there's a bunch of different worldviews that take
what do you think?
One approach and a bunch that take the other approach. Does that mean that 50% of them had some kind of superlative wisdom about the universe? Well, no, that just means that they guessed the one that was right. It doesn't mean that they have some extra wisdom that we didn't know about. They just guessed the other half.
Which one do you think?
I think the universe eternal. I don't think it was created.
The universe. So my understanding of the actual literal definition of universe is all matter and space.
Well, universe the literal definition is all existing stuff, but that's not matter. It's kind of like
substance. I mean, matter, meaning matter is physical, which is particles of atoms from an atomic level to the planetary level. Anything you can touch, anything that's matter is the universe, right? Collectively.
Well, no, because universe would include everything, even if you couldn't touch it, even if there was a spiritual realm that would fit within the definition of the word. But the definition of the word isn't really that important. So, like, the definition of the world?
To make sure we're on the same page. It's like you mean like existence. We say, existence itself, everything in it.
Well, the problem with the definitions is that, do you know the definition of the word atom?
I don't think anyone does. I mean, what we call the atom itself?
No, like just the word. The definition of the word in Greek is the smallest constituent part. This is what the word atom
which
means.
Could consistently be changed as we discover new, smaller.
Right. So the thing that we called an atom, we actually discovered had smaller parts: protons, neutrons, electrons, gluons. So the thing that we call the atom isn't the smallest constituent part, even though we gave it the word atom, which means the smallest constituent part. The same thing applies to universe. The universe, even though we use the word, which means all stuff, we don't think that the universe, as we refer to it, is everything. We think that there's something else there: multiverse, string theory, quantum fields. Nobody really thinks that the universe, as we describe it, is the fundamental nature of reality. We just think it's just the current thing we know about.
This says universe dictionary, all existing matter and space considered as a whole, the cosmos.
Yes.
So cosmos. Do you believe in the soul?
No.
So you don't have a soul?
No, I don't believe there's any evidence for souls.
No, I'm not. There's no evidence for a lot of things. Like, can you name a scientific fact? A universal scientific fact? Universal.
A equals A.
No, universal scientific fact. A equals A?
Yes, the law of identity is a scientific fact. Law of thermodynamics, the first four laws of physics.
For example, light speed a scientific fact?
Yes. The speed of light
can't escape a black hole, and light moves slower around higher gravitational pull.
No, light actually moves at the exact same speed. It just appears to move slower from different observers' effects.
So a black hole?
Yep. So light doesn't change speed. Light always travels at the same speed. It just appears to be traveling at different speeds to different observers. So yes, the speed of light would be a constant in the laws of physics.
Light itself does not slow down when entering a black hole. Consistent. Interesting. I wonder what flat Earth commenters will have to say about that one. That sounds like a big conspiracy there, T-Jump.
Oh, sure. It's extremely confusing. Einstein's general and special relativity, how light works, is very not simple to understand.
Well, it's called theory, though, right? It's not.
Well, so theory is a term that means the most highest established premise in science. Theories are built of facts. Facts are what make something a theory. Facts aren't higher than a theory.
Yeah, I would say that we have theories, facts, and I would say universal truths, right? Which I think is the thing that we're all kind of searching for, like in this collective humanity thing. We're all trying to figure out what if, we would think that there's ultimately, when you go back to the, when you get past the Merovingian, eventually you're going to get to Oz. You're going to pull the curtain back, and there you have it. Oh, and there's the singular universal truth, right? And that word we say God, right? Of course, that's the word we use, but that's been so watered down. It doesn't really have a kick like it probably used to, and certainly doesn't compared to other um, linguistical combinations. Like, are you familiar with the Zoroastrians?
They are, yeah. Zoroastrianism
Somewhat.
was the very first monotheism.
Agreed. Are you familiar with the concept of like God and good and evil?
I think that's a very broad question that applies to the vast majority of religions.
Okay, I can. I mean, I can say so. Their concept of God wasn't in any way in any personification whatsoever. They used the word, which is my favorite, Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda means the uncreated one, uh, from which, of course, all things come, like let's say universally, right? So the uncreated one, Ahura Mazda, and inside of that you have good and you have evil. You have good, which is like the asha, which would be like truth, order, righteousness, right? Everything in its proper place. And then you have like angru manu, which would be like evil, darkness, etc. And they believe from the human perspective, we're here. And through the three principles, which is good thoughts, good deeds, and good words, that we either move closer to the goodness or we move closer to the darkness through our thoughts, our deeds, and our actions. Our thoughts, words, and deeds. It's very similar to what you're speaking about regarding objective morality, in the perspective that there's not an ultimate judge, there's not, there's no Mount Olympus, but there is the laws of karma, right? Would apply, of course, to that.
So I don't believe in karma. I don't think karma is real. I think, in fact, there's
Cause and
lots of
effect. Cause and effect is karma.
Well, I think karma is more complicated than that, because cause and effect I definitely think is a thing, but I don't think karma is a thing, because I think karma is the idea that, like, if you do more good things will happen to you, or if you do more bad things will happen to you. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think there's Donald Trump has done probably more bad things than good things, yet he is the president of the United States. So I don't think there's
bad, but when we say bad things and good things, we're talking about like what does that mean? Like he's had sex with more prostitutes than someone else, or we're talking about he's harmed more people because
harm more people.
He's harmed more people than George Bush.
I don't know if I don't know about that, but
let's see. I mean, in wars, George Bush killed 1 million people, and Donald Trump didn't kill 1 million people in 4 years in office during wars.
So sure. So, but the point isn't that Donald Trump is the worst person ever. The point is that he is a bad person who's hurt lots of people, but he's been rewarded for hurting lots of people. I don't think that there is a connection between the amount of people that you help and the goodness that will happen to you. And I don't think there's a connection to the amount of people that you hurt and the badness that will happen to you. So I would say
that in this exact lifetime, I would have to agree with you. Unfortunately, and slightly reluctantly, I would agree. I would say that in my book, the quote, I have a book of poetry and philosophy I'd love to send to you.
Sure.
Says, why do those who help the most suffer the hardest consequences, while those who do harm wield pain without regret? How come you could spend your whole life doing good and never reap the benefit here while you're breathing, and then other people take every single advantage of everything they possibly can to become kings in their life, and then hand that off through, and so for you to even grasp the concept of justice in this perspective, you would have to believe in aspects of karma, right? You would have to believe in an afterlife or some aspect of reincarnation. And I'm not going to even get into trying to tell you that reincarnation in any aspect exists, because then we would be getting into that. But I would say,
I want to just one of my favorite quotes.
Tell me.
It's life isn't fair. Why would the afterlife be any different?
Well, apparently it's not in most of these religions. If you really look at it, you don't really want to go to a lot of these places they tell you is going to be great.
Right. Well, so the point of the quote is that if karma doesn't apply in our lifetime, if karma doesn't apply here in our lives, why would you infer that there is some afterlife when it would finally start to balance out? Wouldn't it be more rational to infer that the disbalance continues?
Well, in my reality, it actually does. It does go into the aspect of afterlife, which I can explain what my perspective of afterlife is, if you'd like.
Sure.
But specifically, I would say that it actually does affect in this life, and that place that it affects us in this life is the same place where we can feel the moral justice, which is inside of our heart. And so, if I were to obtain $50 million by killing 50 people, I could probably provide for my children and everything, but there's certain times when you're laying by yourself and you hear those screams, it's probably not going to be the best. And that would be that justice, that, that karma. Now, that would be.
Well, it goes back to something you said earlier. Like, you remember when you asked me if I would be willing to go to prison for $50 million?
Uh-huh.
Would you be willing to?
Year.
Yeah. Would you be willing to suffer some uncomfortable nights in bed for $50 million? Like, it's not really a fair exchange, don't you think?
No, but that's the thing, though. That's where the morality and the unseen fabric that that unseen moral justice that we were talking about, that objective morality would be living objectively inside of our heart. I would say connected to our soul. If you don't believe we have a soul, we'll get into soul later, but and that's the problem, is because one person would say, hold on a second, kill 50 innocent people and get $50 million. Okay. And then another person say, I would never kill 50 people for $50 million, not for $500 million. And that's the problem with humans. I think there's something wrong. I think that humanity has a big problem.
Yeah, those people are stupid. You should 100% kill them. Because...
yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it depends on, because I have another writing in my book. It says, what is the harm done by he who possesses evil within, yet harms not another? Yet what is the harm done by he who knows the light within and does not share it? Like, the person who knows that they can actually like help people but doesn't, right? Whether it's through words, through inspiration, whatever the case is. And then what is and is that person more righteous than the person who has that, that wiring you're talking about? Like, they're like, want to like think about killing people, but they never do.
Yeah,
that is a good deed.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually, not only is it moral to not harm other people, knowing that it's wrong, but I don't think that it's immoral to harbor perceived immoral desires. So, like, if someone has desires of being a murderer or pedophile, or whatever, but never acts on them, there's nothing inherently immoral with that person at all.
I think about stupid stuff all the time. Not anything regarding that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll think like, wow, I'll watch something about some sort of like bank robbery or something, like, man, that's kind of inspiring, like,
sure.
And it looks somewhat exciting, like I watch Braveheart and I want to start a revolution, but I don't, you don't see me trying to take over Miami with a bunch of Afghan people, right? So
you got to yell freedom. You got to yell freedom.
Of course.
Afghan accent. Just have a big scimitar. Yes.
Well, we are. Yeah, I'm not gonna get that going, brother. That's gonna create a whole situation for me. Like, you're trying to get me. We can't have that going on. I could go to Afghanistan and yell that and probably become like a local hero. For sure. I'll be the. But let me ask you a question. If moral truths are like objective, and those moral truths can be objective universally, then how would we be able to conceive of the infinite from a finite mind? Like, if we're confined to our consciousness and our mind, and everything is like electromagnetic and chemicals and science, then how come we've always conceived of something that can't be seen, can't be touched, that could be guiding or controlling and everything? How can we conceive of the inconceivable? In the perspective, meaning God, for example. To me, that word is inconceivable.
Well, it's like asking, how can I conceive of a married bachelor? Or no, not a man. That's a bad example. How can I conceive of a perfect triangle? So it's impossible for anybody to draw a perfect triangle.
In my mind, I see a perfect triangle right now. We have to pick something else.
That's the point. Like, No perfect triangles exist anywhere in reality. They don't exist. No matter how perfectly you draw a line, if you zoom in on the electrons, they're bubble shapes. You can't draw a perfectly straight line. It is impossible to make a perfect triangle in reality, but we can imagine it extremely easily because we have a definition for it.
If you zoom in enough, you would see serpentine movements.
Right.
You'd never see. Absolutely.
Right. And so the same question would apply, the same question you just asked would apply to triangles. How can we imagine a perfectly straight triangle even though they can't exist? Well, because we have two concepts that do exist, triangles and straightness. And if you combine those two, you get a perfectly straight triangle. It's not that the perfectly straight triangle itself needs to exist. As long as the constituent parts exist, we can imagine them. And that's kind of the point of imagination, is the ability to combine desperate ideas in a way that comes up with a new idea, and that's called creativity. So how do we imagine God? The exact same way we imagine triangles or unicorns or leprechauns, or that I am the king, sexiest man of the universe. The fact that that's not true doesn't prevent me from imagining it, because I'm just combining two desperate ideas together that don't necessarily fit. God is the same thing. God is just combining a bunch of different ideas together into a new thing that doesn't exist.
Have you ever explored any like transcendental meditation or psychedelics or ayahuasca, for example?
Yes, lots.
What have you? Lots.
So I did 12 years of therapy, including years of meditation, experimenting with drugs, both prescription and non-prescription. I did tons and tons of like Reiki sessions and inner child work and shadow work and cutting cords and all kinds of things that everybody suggested, none of which I believed in. But because I had depression for so long and I was willing to try anything to try to overcome it, I experimented with a whole bunch of crap.
Yeah. But what about what about like psychedelics or plant medicines?
Yes, I have tried psychedelics and plant medicines. In fact, I don't really like hard drugs because they have a very negative effect on me. They accentuate the depression. But one that I try regularly is I go to cacao ceremonies bi-weekly. Yes, because there's the same guy who hosts it. He was on my channel 2 weeks ago, Julian. He hosts a philosophy club every other Sunday, and then a cacao ceremony every other Sunday. And so I go to those every other week.
Cacao ceremonies are beautiful and a nice, beautiful heart opener and heart warmer.
Yep.
And the other good thing about that is that if you go regularly, you're probably benefiting from the tribal communal aspect of it, which is, I think, one of the only things that really hold together most religions, right? Because we're in essence tribal. So it's beautiful to experience this, but cacao by itself is not going to introduce you to the proof that you have a soul, for example.
Sure.
There's something called ayahuasca. If I hear someone say that they think they don't have a soul, it's kind of very easy to show you that you do, in fact. So have a Santa Claus. I can't show you that Santa Claus is real, but I can 100,000% introduce you to your soul.
So I've tried that as well. Actually, there's a group here called Luna Wolf. Luna Wolf is a 501c3 nonprofit that does.
Sounds like fucking amateur hour to you. Luna
Maybe
Wolf.
I can't tell the difference. But
did you have a good experience? I'm just joking.
No, I did not. I think that.
Explain, share if you like.
Well, so drugs make me feel more depressed, not less depressed.
Ayahuasca is not a drug. It's a medicine.
It's the same thing. A drug, a medicine, and a drug
is a chemical, and a medicine is a plant. And I understand they both have chemicals, but I'm talking about the essence of them, and which is hard to explain to someone who doesn't believe they have a soul. But if you'd like me, I can explain the difference, and maybe one day we'll be able to share the same moral framework, or I guess worldview, you could say. In essence, a chemical, a drug is a chemical, and a plant is a medicine. Now, obviously, all chemical drugs can be used as a medicine, and all plant medicines can be used as a drug. But let me give you an example. For example, coca leaf. So coca leaf, of course, was being used in the Andes forever. It's still being used right now. And when the conquistadors first came to Peru, they saw these little people chewing these leaves, and they were able to carry everything up like Machu Picchu, for example, with great dispatch, great speed. So what the hell are these people chewing on? And they went over and they took some of the leaves and started chewing on it. They started to wake up. They could breathe all of a sudden, 6,000 foot altitude. Like, wow, what the hell is this? So they shipped the coca leaf, which the indigenous people call mama coca, and they believe it has a divine feminine soul. And they started turning it into the cocaine syrup, because if you take enough of it and cook it, it becomes a black syrup. Now that cocaine syrup and was being used in medicine forever. I'm sure you've heard that, like, Coke, what is it called? Coca-Cola had cocaine in it, right?
Yeah.
So that was the syrup. So they would say, oh, you're tired? Drink 1 teaspoon. You need to go to sleep? Drink 2 teaspoons, etc. And eventually what happened was that coca syrup, they found that they could turn it into a powder. That's why World War I, a lot of people don't realize that World War I is fueled by cocaine. Late 1880s to that early 1900s, fueled by cocaine everywhere, as well as the syrup. And then what happens is that you take that cocaine and you use astringents like, let's say, alcohol and other chemicals, and that cocaine can now become a crack. And the only difference between cocaine and crack is one ingredient, that's called greed. And so as you take a plant in its natural form and extract it for one specific chemical, it's the same thing as taking a human and killing a human because you want to take their liver or you want to take their organs to sell on the black market. And that's the problem. So, for example, there's a big difference between smoking DMT and drinking ayahuasca, although the active ingredient in both is dimethyltryptamine. It has the same effect on the pineal gland, etc. There's just a difference.
Yeah, there's lots of differences. The way you ingest it will affect how it affects your body, because if it goes into your stomach, your stomach is going to break down more of the chemicals in some contexts than the others. Whereas if you just do like direct injection or anal injection, it'll be very, very different.
Do you believe, what is your opinion? And I'm not trying to dive too deep into it, but what is your opinion of like ancient alien concepts or like Sumerian concepts of we were created by the Anunnaki or any of that stuff? Do you think the human form was created by any alien form that came, or what do you think?
No, I'm hard into the evolution. Evolution seems to control a lot of the aspects of who and what we are. Like, we can go back and look that there was 4 major extinction events that almost wiped out all of humanity and completely shaped what we know of as humans today, where we can say that the entire population shrank down to less than 1,200, and those 1,200 had very specific qualities. Like, one of the times was when we wiped out the Neanderthals and we adopted bigger brain sizes because of it. Those things weren't developed by aliens. Those things were developed by evolution. And so there's a lot of aspects of human nature which we know have nothing to do with the origin of our genetic structure and have everything to do with the environmental factors that helped us outcompete competitors or outsurvive natural disasters or food shortages or diseases, the Black Plague. There's lots of things that happened that shaped who we are that have nothing to do with our direct genetic origin that aliens could hypothetically have had a possible impact on. So I don't think there's any reason to think that aliens would have anything to do with how humans developed. Also, I don't think they would travel millions of light years to mess around with some monkeys. If they had that kind of technology, they could just make their own monkeys or their own computerized monkeys and do all the experiments they wanted to from the comfort of their own planet. They wouldn't need to travel.
The Sumerian stories, they came here to mine for gold because their atmosphere. Well, according to the Sumerian story, it says that the Anunnaki came here to mine for gold because they were looking for gold to fix their skies, which was like, if you take.
But that doesn't make sense, because
it's
do you know what the Kuiper Belt is?
Yes,
Kuiper Belt. All those rocks
in Afghanistan.
Well, so the Kuiper Belt is a bunch of rocks that go around our solar system. There are rocks in our solar system that have more gold than all gold on planet Earth. You could just grab one of those rocks and you would have more gold than all gold that has ever been processed on planet Earth in 5 minutes.
Even more than the Saudis have?
Yes, more than all of gold on planet Earth. So
we wouldn't need this leprechaun bullshit stories if we had that.
That's right. So if there were aliens who were going to come to mine gold, they could just grab it from any of those rocks. Gold isn't even rare. Gold is a fairly common.
Belt moving? How fast is the Kuiper Belt moving?
Slower.
11,000, right? Something crazy.
No, it's not even. Not really. Like they're pretty slow. It's pretty far out there. It's not really doing anything. It's kind of just sitting there. Like planets are moving faster than the Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt isn't really even moving. It's just a bunch of rocks hanging out there.
Is Elon Musk aware of this?
Elon Musk is not aware of much. He's not a very informed man.
Are you going to put a chip in you if you have the opportunity?
Absolutely, yes.
You are?
Yeah. Like, think about it this way. Can you name a technology that humanity has invented that has done more harm than good?
A technology that humanity has invented that has done more harm? Yes, of course. More harm than good?
What?
A technology that we've invented that has more harm than good?
Yeah.
The COVID vaccine?
COVID vaccine. That saved millions of lives. Or even if it did, yeah, absolutely. So like even if it does
how
all
about
of the
AIDS?
bad
How
things,
about AIDS?
AIDS. We didn't invent AIDS. AIDS was
I don't know. We don't know that for sure. We have
100% know that for sure because when AIDS,
no, we don't.
The origin of AIDS, we literally didn't have the technological capability to. We still don't have the capability to genetically modify a virus in any significantly accurate degree. We just literally don't have that technology. Even with CRISPR-Cas9, the ability to input whatever we want at any point in a genetic stream, we can't manipulate DNA to that degree. It's just, we don't even.
How about circumcision?
That's not a technology. I mean, it's
it's
a weird social practice. So yeah, I think weird social practices are stupid, but it's not a technology.
How about the internet?
Internet's absolutely done more good than harm. 100%. Internet has saved.
How about American Idol?
American Idol. That's not a technology. Actually, American Idol is great. It's been phenomenal for society.
I think it's shit.
Best thing ever.
Jacob Siegel, a professor at Humboldt University, proposed that HIV was created in the 1970s.
Doesn't it make like created in a lab or just created as an evolved?
I don't know. I'm not actually trying to go too deep into that, but there's a lot of people that would say that has been created in a lab or was isolated and then put forth into societies and specific groups. So
yeah, it's like saying that's like saying that you built a rocket in your backyard. That's how complicated that would be. Like you built the what's it called, the SpaceX rocket that went to space. Saying that people in the 1970s manufactured HIV technologically would be like saying that you went in your backyard over a weekend and built a spaceship that could go to Mars. That's how ridiculous.
We went to the moon in the 60s.
Yes, but
that's more impressive.
Well, so the crux of that analogy was saying that you yourself, just you personally, and nobody else, you personally went to your backyard, built one of Elon Musk's space rockets and went to Mars, just you, in a weekend. That's the level of complexity of biological engineering. Like the two most complicated fields in all of science are biology and neurology. They are significantly harder than space flight. So what Elon Musk is doing is child's play compared to manufacturing a virus. That is so much harder. Magnitudes of order harder.
Even with the new mRNA technologies that we have and CRISPR.
Yes. Like think about your brain. Your brain has 100 billion neurons with 100 trillion connections. The complexity of cells and their interactions and how they work with one another is so obscenely complex. There is no way, even today, for us to be able to manufacture a virus to that level of accuracy. We just can't do it.
That's why I believe we were modified, because that's why I believe we were modified on some level, on some aspect.
Why?
Because we're significant. Because there's just a gigantic gap between ourselves and the monkey.
Well, there's not. It's pretty small gap.
There's plenty.
There's a gap in our function, but the genetic difference is actually really small. And that's
how about the 100 billion neurons?
100 billion. Yeah, like the genetic difference to go from the amount of neurons in a chimpanzee to the amount of neurons
Oh,
in
sure. I mean,
humans.
genetically, there's only slight difference between
Yeah,
us
yeah,
and a
it's like
potato. They
one
say.
chromosome. Yeah, like the genetic difference is pretty easy, which means to think that it was a product of evolution wouldn't be a hard stretch. Like if it took a massive change to DNA in order to change monkeys into humans, then you might have a reason to believe that humans were modified. But if the change required is actually pretty small in terms of DNA to be able to create that difference, then there's no reason to think that we would need to be modified. We could just think evolution did it because the changes required are pretty small genetically in order to produce the mental capacity differences that we see between us and monkeys.
I think we were modified. How and what in specific? I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't know. It's to me. It seems that was the case. Personally, that seems to be the case here for what we're dealing with. Let me ask you. You said you drink ayahuasca one time. Did you not Did you have an experience that was transcendental, or did you have I don't want to say a spiritual experience, but did you have like a visual journey, like
visions?
something?
Sure. I had visions, but I wouldn't like.
Did you come into contact with any other consciousness or see yourself in any omni-conscious perspective of the universe, or go through any cosmic umbilical cords, or anything that you would call spiritual?
Um, I think I experience things that other people might call spiritual, but I would
Okay.
just call visions. So, like we were talking earlier about the difference in how I feel compared to what most people feel,
Yes.
like specifically related to friends and family. So, like I lived with my parents most of my life, but I don't know how old they are. I don't know where they met. I don't know what college they went to. I don't know where they got married because I was never compelled, even as a child, to ever talk to them or get to know them because I just don't have those feelings. And so what I experienced on drugs lacked all of those same emotional, empathetic feelings that I just don't have, even though I had the same visual sensations other people have. The spiritual connotations they have was very different for me because of how my brain works.
Okay. So, but that would mean that does that mean that the actual process? Well, it's kind of hard because the ability to describe something may be hindered in some way compared to who you would like someone else, but the actual experience itself doesn't mean it was any way different than anybody else, just because once you come back, so to speak, your way of expressing it may be different.
Well, think about it this way. So when
Experientially, I would think there would be absolutely no different. I mean, I've served medicine to people who have many different.
Well, so I'm saying there is a difference. I'm saying like when a colorblind person takes ayahuasca, they don't see colors. They literally
That's a
can't. Their
really
brain.
good question.
Well, no, it's been studied. This is a thing. They don't see colors. People who can't see don't see anything. There's people who have a disease where they can't think of an apple consciously. I forget what that's called, or they just literally can't visualize an apple. And people with those kinds of mental challenges, those are like physical limitations of their brain. They don't get solved by taking ayahuasca where you can now see colors. It just doesn't work that way. And so for someone like me who doesn't have the same emotional connotations, the emotional feelings of everyone else, the same thing. I just don't experience the same depth of emotion that you would when you feel ayahuasca because those parts of my brain just don't exist. The connections just aren't there to the same degree that yours are. And so even though I can see the same colors you see, the connotation that they have to a deeper reality is an emotional feeling that you can feel that I won't feel given the same experience. So they won't be the same experience between you and me because my brain isn't capable of feeling those things.
I think what I think what I'm leaning towards is that your brain would just be a machine that would process the essence of the experience through the soul. I think that ultimately that's probably what I'm leaning towards or banking on, I would say. beyond the, for example, someone can go and see these amazing lights and all this stuff, and of course ayahuasca can provide amazing visual journey. One day you think you're going through the entirety of space, only to realize that you're going through a cosmic umbilical cord, so to speak, and then you realize what is up, what is down, and so on, right? But there is this like essence that's inside of it that you can feel like permeate through you, and like you could be ripped apart through this thing, and it's, you can tell there's this omni consciousness. And then in the ayahuasca ceremony, did you not see any of the little like the ayahuasca helpers? None of that.
No. Ayahuasca helpers. Never heard that one.
What
before.
kind of music was going on when you were they playing like crystal bowls, or was there someone?
It was like what's it called? This Reiki meditation sound bath stuff.
Shit. So there was nobody shaking leaves and singing like Chuyai Chuyai Medicina.
I think that was a part of it. I think there was somebody doing some singing like that too. But I think
All right, we're gonna get to the bottom of this team.
Sure, we can do it together sometime. Bring me with.
Yeah. If you're open, I am too. I'd like to.
I can try.
Not because I'm trying to prove anything. I'm just trying to.
You just got to bring the Instagram models with too, dude. I'm there. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm not. It's more of just exploration. I respect your mind. I appreciate your philosophy, and I like you. I like your thought process. I like the way your brain works. I do also have a guilt. I will admit that I do like when you get into arguments with these people. Also, it's absolutely entertaining. Jay Dyer is running from me.
Yeah, he's running from everybody.
I asked him two questions on a Twitter space. He went on tilt in less than 2 minutes, muted me, and started talking shit.
That sounds like Jay. Unbelievable.
But he muted me. What coward? Would you ever mute someone and then start talking? I asked him the question. He said he probably just was having a bad day, but it was probably the worst question, because I said, can we set a foundation? When I say God, I'm talking about that which exists and has no origin, yet all comes from and exists within. He says, yes, that's a great definition of God. And I said, and this supreme force, can it consolidate itself into a single structure like a moon? He says, no. I said, how about a mountain? He said, no. So then how can it do that, consolidate itself within a man, a human?
That's a good argument. I like that. That's clever. That's good.
And then he goes, thank you. And then he goes, Ecclesiastes something. And I said, and who wrote that? He said, Paul. And I said, that's hearsay. So Paul told you? And he just like lost it.
Yeah.
He really just went on. But I don't have a problem with arguing with people. I'm built for that. The problem was he muted me like a coward.
Yes. Well, to answer your question, yes, I've muted a lot of people, but it's usually only when they talk over me. That's the only time I usually mute them.
Well, you didn't mute that. You didn't mute the Darth
Dawkins.
What's the situation with that guy? He's like on the edge about.
Yeah, he is.
What is this guy's situation? I mean,
I have no idea. I have not looked into his personal life whatsoever.
Well, who cares? But how do you even find this person to even get into a conversation with this guy?
Oh, I didn't.
Where are you?
My fans on Discord did. He lives on Discord. I think he lives in Discord in his little like crazy hut. But yeah, people follow him, and like Tom Rabbit follows.
You mean like
him.
the apologist, like he's their spirit animal.
Well, it's both atheists and Christians follow him around because he's a social figure that's entertaining to troll. And so he's followed, like Tom Rabbit is an atheist, and he just follows Darth around on Discord and records him and has a very successful YouTube channel just doing that. So it's because he's such a unbearable troll. He creates a lot of lol cow moments, so people follow him on both sides.
So they're just so they're trolling him.
Yes,
he has no actual. Oh, okay. Well, he would be a lot of fun to troll. Jesse Lee Peterson's the fun one to call, and I'll send you some of my.
Oh yeah, I had him on. I had a interview with him.
But he didn't prove to you that God exists.
No, I think we talked more about society and like men and women's role in society, I think, than we did God. Someone
sent this question. It looks like a chat GPT. What is the most complex philosophical question you can conceive of? The answer: what is the fundamental nature of existence, and is it And is reality ultimately a construct of consciousness or an objective entity independent of perception?
Why would that be the most complicated question?
It's just actually quite retarded. I just realized.
Well, it's not a retarded question. It's a
it's
a very basic question in philosophy. It's basically just idealism versus materialism. That's the
why
question.
Is ground down and why is ceiling up?
I don't think so. I think because their question is a legitimate question in philosophy. It's idealism versus materialism. Is the fundamental nature of reality conscious or is it material? That's the question.
Someone just got mad about me using the word retarded.
Oh God, you're being ableist. All people are going to be offended and cry now. Oh no.
I apologize. I think. I mean, you can be. It's like calling someone. Yeah. Anyway, here's another one. If the universe operates according to deterministic law, yet we experience a sense of free will, can the concept of moral responsibility be reconciled with the idea that all actions are causally predetermined?
Yeah, it's called compatibilism. Also, the most common view in academic philosophy that determinism is true, but you still have free will, and it's that literally compatibilism is the position that free will is compatible with determinism.
You believe in free will?
No. So I don't like compatibilism.
No?
I think it's just changing the definition of free will. I think we're determined or random in some sense. There isn't really a much.
It's like the question of what's the difference between destiny and fate. Is there a difference to you?
No. I think those two would be synonyms.
Destiny and fate. For example, we're all born. If we're born, then we have a fate to die, and our destiny would be the actions we take in the process in the time between birth and death.
Well, I don't think we're fated to die. I think that's just a current limitation of our physical world.
Well, that's very biblical of you because that's what the Genesis tells you.
Well, it's what most religions tell you is that you have an afterlife.
That was very religious of you at the end here.
Yeah.
Are you? Am I the one who did it? That was very Genesis because they say that the only reason why we understood death was because we ate from the fruit from the tree of wisdom, right? That's the idea.
Sure, but I think it's more scientific than that. Like we can literally just conquer death if we gain enough technology and physics. Like that's you don't need a spirit for it. You can just overcome it with nature.
In the concept of like captured consciousness into a computer system and talk to your great grandchildren, that type of idea.
Well, sure, or just like combining our bodies with physical computer systems, or using genetic engineering in order to make us live eternally, like lobsters, or using ways to overcome death. Like death isn't required. There's no logical necessity. There's no fate that says because you're alive you have to die. That's just a convenient fact that's been true for a long time, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be true.
Interesting. So no free will, no God, no soul, science, and collectively physics, everything in the bubble of science explains everything.
Yes, I think that if you're trying to find a answer to the question of what is real and not imaginary, science is the way to do it. But I wouldn't say that that's my defining truth. I say that I don't think what exists matters. I don't think it matters whether karma is real or Reiki is real or chakras are real. I think what matters is what gives you fulfillment in life way more than whether matter and energy are the ultimate substance of reality. I think that's what the evidence indicates, but who cares? It doesn't make a difference. Like if you're happier believing in crystals and Reiki and chakras, then don't base your beliefs off of scientific evidence. You don't need to. There's no benefit to it unless you're working in science. Who cares?
But if free will doesn't exist, then all moral judgments are how would they be justifiable?
Well, so you can take the compatibilist approach that if you have a functioning mind to the level of an adult human, then that makes you responsible for your actions, even if they're determined. Your brain made this decision, so your brain holds responsibility because it's the brain structure you use, essentially. Therefore, that brain structure is responsible for the actions you take.
But isn't that free will, though?
No. So that would mean, like, if your brain is determined to do a crime, then your brain is a criminal mind, even if it's determined to be a criminal mind. So it's not like your brain is culpable, like it's deserving of punishment. It's just you were determined to do it. And we have a responsibility to treat you as if you're a criminal. But if we had a way to cure you, like a pill we could take to make you no longer criminal, that would be the moral decision. That's the moral thing to do, not to punish you, but to cure you.
What happens if you have, you make $1 million a year, everything's going good, all of a sudden you lose everything, and then now all of a sudden you have no food. Now you're all of a sudden going in and considering stealing food. Like that circumstance changed. The idea of stealing food was never predisposed in your mind in any way whatsoever, even through the social aspect of things. You have the ability to provide something which would be like a bare necessity of feeding yourself and your family, and then all of a sudden the next day you don't. Then all of a sudden now the range of decisions to acquire food to feed, no matter how noble it is, like the idea to steal only came through because of your circumstances that just happened today when they didn't exist yesterday.
Well, the idea to steal way predates your experience. Like, monkeys steal food all the time from other monkeys when they're hungry.
Monkeys also throw shit at each other too.
So do humans. That is a human thing that we do all the time as well. But the point is that it's not free will that gives you the ability to steal. Stealing, the desire to
free will is the choice. That free will is the exercise of the choice.
Well, I don't think that's even possible to have free will, but the idea, stealing isn't an act of free will. Stealing is a natural response to a lack of resources. It's extremely common. It's your brain is determined to feel the desire to steal.
But action and inaction and the time of which you take an action or inaction is the exercise of free will, is it not?
No. So this is Phineas Gage. You've heard of Phineas Gage?
I'm brother. The same way you talked about the autism, I'm dyslexic. I haven't read 10 books in my life.
Sure.
So we're going off the dome.
Phineas Gage was a rail worker in the 1800s, and he was pounding. The way they used to do it, they would put gunpowder inside the spikes and then knock the spikes down. And there was a spark that happened, and the rod got shot up through his head, through his brain, knocked out a part of his brain. And he literally couldn't stop himself from doing things. He lost all of the ability to self-control. So that ability to stop yourself from acting on a desire or an impulse is just a part of your brain. It's not free will. And whether or not you will or won't stop yourself from acting on the impulse is just how developed that part of the brain is. That's it. There's no free will there.
But the free will is the exercising of doing and not doing, though.
Well, no, that whole exercise is just, does that part of your brain work or not? It's that simple. If I damage that part of your brain, you will not be able to stop yourself anymore. The inhibition is just that part of the brain. And so I think there is no real true inability or ability to act or not act on a desire. That's just a function or a program that exists in your brain, just like Windows does in a computer. And if you delete that function by having a spike go through your brain, then you won't have that ability anymore. And so free will, as you describe it, is really just the level of development of that one part of your brain.
Well,
and I would go further.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying for sure, and it's going to continue to go in a circle for sure. Like where I do.
Well, I wanted to add one more part.
Oh yeah, of course.
So when I think of free will, I think free will is just logically impossible. I think that either you do an action for a reason, in which case it's going to be determined by that reason, or you do an action for no reason, in which case it's random by definition. And so if you do something for a reason and it's determined by that reason, you have no free will. And if you do an action for no reason and it's random, well, that's not free will either. And so even if we're talking about just the ability to go to it from a state of no choice to a state of choice being made, either that's going to happen for reasons, in which case they're determined by the reasons, or it's going to happen for no reason, in which case it's random. And so it's not even logically possible for free will to be a thing. It's either determined for reasons or no reasons, determined or random.
It sounds a little bit like predeterminism.
Sort of, yeah.
But that's, yeah. So I'm not, for example, like I know that we're not exercising free will in the concept of taking our next breath, right?
Sure.
And I can understand why the argument for love is just a variation of chemical responses. Like some people are emitting more of that, and some can receive less, etc., based off of chemicals in the body and the brain. But
sure,
as far as actions and inactions, I think we have full control over that, and I think that whereas it may be some people have stronger willpower, I do believe that willpower is something like for example, how you have metabolism, and so the more there's muscle memory, right? The more time you invest in curling, bicep curls. If you do bicep curls every single day for 8 years and you put them down for 4 years, the next time you pick them up, you'll have muscle memory, right? I think that that free will, and on one side you could say here's free will, and then you have willpower, and then you have like strength, and then weak willpower, right? And I think that's like kind of like a muscle, similar to like the objective morality concept. I think it's a very similar thing. Like I've found myself, for example, some people have a problem like bread. Some people have alcohol. Some people have different things, right? Whereas one person can just drink a couple of drinks and never touch it again. Some people smell it and they're gonna go down the rabbit hole. Some people like that with sweets and others, right? And so whereas we can't prove that my willpower is stronger than yours if I don't drink alcohol, right? And someone's an alcoholic. And if I love pizza and you don't, then we can't exercise the measurement of the exercise of willpower either. But what we can do is determine that we have the free will to do or not to do on anything, whether your willpower is strong or weak. I can decide whether I can eat the pizza knowing that I'm going to eat the whole thing, or take one bite of ice cream, even though I know that if I eat one bite of ice cream, I may eat the whole thing. So I can decide, don't eat the whole thing, and which means don't take one bite. That's all free will to me.
Well, if it's like a muscle, what happens if your muscle ruptures? If you
get the pole through your head, they get the pole through your head. Then then we need the chip. Then we need Elon Musk chip.
Sure.
Or we're throwing shit on each other like monkeys. So who knows?
But doesn't that mean it's not free?
Shit on each other and jerking off in public.
Well, doesn't that mean it's not free? Like if your ability to make a decision is contingent on that part of your brain, then is it free or is it determined? Because if it's only based off of that part of your brain, and that part of your brain is the one doing the decision, not really you.
Well, that's that. Now we're getting into good and evil a little bit, because the Satanists would basically say, like Aleister Crowley, do what thou wilt will be the law. And that's how people justify what we would say would be like immoral acts, which takes away the free will of others. Or that's why some people decide to control others. They justify in their mind and say, hey, guess what? It's just the way I see the world. I'm just exercising. I don't have free will. I'm just doing what I think is right and good for me. That's where we get into that stuff. So if we don't have free will, then it's not, who would you say is like one of the most evil people in like the last 100 years? Like, just so we can agree on the same person.
Henry Kissinger.
Agreed. Fully. Yeah. That sounds like a conversation we should have later. Henry Kissinger is a scumbag, and if there's a hell, he's having fun there. So Henry Kissinger, for example, would be a perfect example of, if I can do it, so be it. It's right. And so he pushed the boundaries, manipulates, lies, cheats, steals, uses influence and power, implements wars, and so on. And in his mind, he'd say, hey, guess what? This is what I was here to do. I don't have the free will. This is what my brain tells me is going to happen. So I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to get further ahead in life because I'm not going to fight the idea of this may not be wrong. I'm not even going to question. I'm just going to act. And therefore, according to his worldview, he actually achieved, right? He would be on the evil person Mount Rushmore. But to the majority of us who was by the way, most people are not even aware of the level of evil of that piece of shit. We would say he's not on Mount Rushmore. He's on the Mount Rushmore of evil people, let's say.
Well, actually, I mean, to be fair, I don't think he's not even the most evil. Like Gaddafi would be more evil.
Gaddafi?
Yeah.
More evil than Henry Kissinger?
Yes. Did you see the stuff he did? Like the people he tortured? Saddam Hussein's son, who like went
his son, yeah.
Like Gaddafi tortured and mass murdered people all the time. Like, what's his name? Kim Jong-un, who used his the anti-air gun on people. Like they're.
Well, you're just mad that he's a living god.
Yeah, because the birds would speak when he was born. Yes, I'm jealous.
He doesn't shit. He perfect golf, perfect game.
He pulled off the Japanese waifu perfectly.
He's a master. I mean, that's why we want to take them down, because they have a living god and we don't.
Yep.
Well,
I'm jealous of their radios and 2D televisions.
I'm jealous of their entire social infrastructure. If we were on top, like he has, for example, he was born so think of it like this. He was born, his father was the supreme ruler, like without question. He was in full control of what we call North Korea. And then he wasn't even the crown prince. His other brother was, and decided they're going to hand it off to him. So by all accounts, he was Caesar. He is Caesar, right? He was born into it. He is put into place, and now he's the supreme ruler. By your perception of free will, he is predetermined to continue to hold the power in which he was born into. By my perspective, he has the free will to free to change it. Anytime he can flip the switch into the other direction. That's what the difference between free will and predeterminism is.
Well, I would just go back to my argument about, does he have that part of his brain and how much of it has been developed? And then that would tell you the answer of if he's capable of changing his ways or not. If that part of his brain hasn't been developed, it's literally impossible for him to consider the idea of not doing those things.
See, I think even at the highest level, like when a prince becomes a king, and they're told that their shit doesn't stink, or they're told their shit smells like roses, in his case, or he doesn't even shit to smell. There's no smell because it doesn't happen, because he works so hard for the people of North Korea. When you have those concepts in place, right? Even being at the pinnacle, he's like their pope and their king, right? He's their King James. The social structure he's holding in place is him in that role, just as you can even look at that in the religious aspect of stuff. Like the main reasons why people stay in the religions that they were born into is not because they think they were randomly born into the right religion. It's because of everything else that comes with it. It's too hard to just challenge your worldview when you still live in Arkansas. When you still live in the little town in Arkansas and everyone is drinking strychnine and speaking tongues, it's hard to get away from that, especially if that little town is the whole world, right? So you kind of stay in that place, even if at any time you could literally just leave, right? At any time he could change everything. But the fear of what would happen if I change everything, the fear of me not being found out to being actually human and being, probably ripped apart by the people, like that's what will keep him in his place. I don't think he actually, I don't think because he inherited the role of supreme ruler that by default, perhaps in his father it wasn't there, that he's wired in the same exact way or has the same chemical wiring that his father did, for example. Or perhaps, and even if he stays in there, I think he chooses to keep it there, and he has a son, and that son also, and so on, right? It's like there's a reason why they hold the power, and I don't think it has to do with just chemicals. I think it has to do with their perception of reality, and most people are just, cowards.
Well, I think their perception of reality is also just chemicals.
So it's all just chemical.
Yep, all just chemicals.
It's all just okay. Yeah, well, one day we'll find out if he all of a sudden frees the people of North Korea and cuts a deal with Trump. We're gonna have to get back on here and say free will. Or is that predetermined too? Because right?
That'd be predetermined too. If he was capable of doing that, that would be because his brain had already been developed in such a way where he was capable of doing that. So he would be determined to do
religious. That's so religious of you. This is the most religious thing I've ever heard you say. Everything's in the hands of God and everything is predetermined, and all we have to do is just trust that everything is going to work out in our favor if we believe in God's name being this.
Well, I don't think it's going to work out in our favor. It typically doesn't. We have to make it work out in our favor.
We do. And that's one of the reasons why I do appreciate the objective morality concept. That's why I do have great appreciation for it. And this conversation, by the way, too. What we're having here on Free Thought Unchained is we're having one-on-one conversations, and then we're getting into the debate aspect of things. And so I don't want to say enjoy. You like debating though, right?
No, I do it as a way to learn how to communicate. What I like is Instagram models. That's what I like.
What if we got a debate? What's your favorite? By the way, what if you have a list of subjects, what would be the subjects that you like to explore more than others? Like by now, you have to be bored of debating. Does God exist from a New Testament perspective, right?
Sure. Like, so
that's a little. That's
the things that I would find the most interesting to explore would be what I'm weakest in, the thing that I have the least knowledge about, which is going to be like social stuff, how to successfully pick up girls, essentially.
Okay.
For me, that's what I would find most exciting would be having friends or a community group that could regularly go to bars or the mall or whatever and experiment and be around women who I'm attracted to, so I could learn how to express myself, be more confident, be more charismatic. Okay. That's the thing that I would be most genuinely interested in trying to learn. There's no like academic topics. I don't care. No, not interested.
Got it. It's just something you can do and so on. Yeah. What's so hard? You just need a group of girlfriends who can show you the to open up the doors of the secret of communicating with women, and then you get to like
that'd be perfect. Yeah, that would be amazing.
That's
that
what you need. You just need girlfriends. What's you're in Minnesota? That's the problem.
Because I don't socialize or speak to other humans ever, and I'm terrified of talking to people. So it's like the hardest thing ever. I have essentially zero friends. Like that's the problem. I've had a lot of really great human beings in my life, but I've never really kept friends because I feel no desire to like. There was this question I was asked: have you ever felt the desire to just go get a beer with someone, to hang out and talk? And I was like, nope. I have literally never felt that. That is such a weird thing to ask. I don't even get it. It's like that question they ask in high school, like if you could have anyone over for dinner, who would you have over? And I always was so confused by that question. I was like, why would I ever want to have anyone over for dinner? That makes no sense. For me, I don't connect to other humans well. I don't enjoy conversation or spending time or getting to know people. And so making friendships is extremely hard for me. Staying in communities is extremely hard for me unless it's with women who I find really, really attractive. And so I have an extremely difficult time finding women friends and maintaining those kinds of friendships. It's like the hardest thing in the world for me because my emotions are just so different.
Well, a friend relationship is different than an intimate relationship because there's a give and take, and then in your case you would be learning. It seems to me there's no way that you could absorb this amount of information if you didn't enjoy on some level the progression of learning. You may not get stimulated from having more information, but your brain likes to move forward in a progression to obtain information on certain things, right? And so if the reward at the end of the day is not, let's say, eternal life, but it is the ability to go up and communicate with the opposite sex, then there's your reward. There's your desire.
Right? Yes, that's the reason I force myself to keep living every day. That is definitely the reason.
Got it. Force myself. Well, I get. Well, so let me ask you a question, and this is not a suggestion in any way, but if we at any point we could decide to throw ourselves off a building.
Oh, I took a bottle of sleeping pills and slit my wrist back when I was 25.
What happened, dude?
So I had 0 relationships at all until like my first relationship was 32. And so
relationship like girlfriend.
Yeah, like that's the only kind that really counts for me. Because remember, friends and family make me feel nothing.
Yeah.
So I had 0 happy memories, 0 happy experiences. Never enjoyed spending time with any other human beings, and had no hobbies I enjoyed for 30 years. And for the first time in my life, I met a girl who I like really liked. And when she rejected me, I was like, nah, this isn't worth it. I'm done. I'm done. And that was it for me.
That was it?
Yeah, that was it. I was ready for it to be over. Because
you said you were training in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yep.
It's the first time someone put you in an arm bar, you just tapped?
Well, it wasn't. It's more like I've been in an arm bar for 30 years, and I've been fighting to try to survive and breathe for 30 years. And then the one chance I got to be free, I missed it after 30 years. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to suffocate. I just want to pass out now.
Oh man. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We need to, but the cacao ceremony is not yielding any potential, like even friendships with the opposite sex. You said you're going to like every week or every other week.
There's like 1 or 2. The challenge is, of course, like I don't know how to build friendships or connections. I really struggle.
About building it. It's not about, you don't need to learn to build friendships or connections. What you need to do at the beginning of the cacao ceremony, when everyone's sharing their intention, your intention is to meet someone or a group of people who can teach me how to speak to the opposite sex, because I do not have the ability to do that. And in return, I will exchange any information, wisdom, or any skill I have with you.
That's
every single cacao ceremony until someone goes, I can help you. And then you help them in return. And guess what that is?
Friendship.
An exchange.
Yeah.
The development of that is a friendship. The development of that's a friendship. The friendship has to be created through time and efforts. That it doesn't just happen. Hey, we're friends. It does when you're a child.
Well, that's the part that I said. So like when I say I need to learn how to build friendships in that way, like what you just said is something I wouldn't do, because for me it feels weird to say my genuine intention. Yes, like that's not a social skill I have. And when you say that, it makes sense to me. Like that is something I should probably try. And I think
it's easy to tell the truth because it's the first thing that comes to our mind. So the first person we have to be honest with ourselves is ourselves. And when we project that, the word abracadabra means what I speak, I create, magic, and it will happen.
Well, this is the part that I really struggle with, because for me, when I don't understand social boundaries very well. And so I don't know when it's appropriate to say and be honest about things like that, and when it's not. Like today, I was like,
well, you're not saying, but Tom, you're not saying I would like someone to leave, and I'm here at the cacao ceremony because I'm hoping that I can sleep with someone here, preferably the most beautiful girl. You're not saying that.
That would be good.
Well, you may, yeah, you could. I'm sure there are ceremonies for that for sure. They're all over the place. LA, they have those, I'm sure. But in this case, it's something that's honest, right? You're a smart guy, right? Women would love to be able to have an honest relationship with someone, and women, like to talk, right? And what are they going to talk about? Like they're going to open you up, right? Some people say they want to, like, here's the problem. Some people, you have to measure how serious you are, because some people are satisfied in their uncomfort. Some people, their whole identity is being overweight, and that's their victimization. In my book, I write victimization is a weapon pointed at humanity because it gives us the justification to do harm to another. And sometimes we sit in our victimization because it's what defines us and what puts us in that state where everyone can hold it. So we have to recognize, like, how serious are we? You've said many times in this conversation that your goal is to, in essence, blossom in the aspect of socially with the goal and the direct intention of interaction with the opposite sex.
Sure.
You said this is the one thing that I
Yep.
desire to in essence feel complete, so to speak, right?
Sure.
And so we have to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's actually, so when you were, what you were
But you have to
saying,
declare it. You have to say, I'm going to do something about it.
well, so like what you were saying was very helpful to me, because when I say what I need to learn the social skills, what I mean by that is like when it's okay to like express my desires in the way that you said, like in the intention
Sure.
part. Like for me, I don't feel it's safe to do that. And I need someone who has the social skills to tell me when it's safe and appropriate to do things like that. Like today, I was getting my hair cut, and um one of the hairdressers that was like literally right next to me, like was one of the most stunningly gorgeous women in the world. Just absolute perfect 10, amazing. And I very much wanted to like ask her out or ask for a number or ask for Instagram. But the skill that I'm missing there is what is the appropriate way to do that that is socially acceptable. And I haven't had, like you said, women friends to walk me through the process to be
Sure.
like, this is what's socially acceptable. This is how you go in this situation to get to the next step in a
But
relationship.
Tom, that just takes balls. That doesn't have anything to do with skills. It just takes balls. I'm not. And here's the thing: you can be like the most good looking guy. That doesn't mean you have the balls to do that. Some of
Well,
the people who
it's not the same, because confidence isn't the issue. The issue is for someone who's autistic like me and has said a lot of things that has gotten me socially ostracized from my past. I need to know which
when
of the things that I could
got it.
potentially say is the safe things to say.
Better to
This
be
is the
safe than-
socially acceptable thing to say in
better to
this
be safe
situation.
than sorry.
Yes,
better
yes.
better to be quiet than to be deemed as an asshole. Be like
Or like, yeah, a perv, a creepy
misunderstood.
perv dude guy.
Yeah.
I get banned
Well,
from the hairdresser place. That would suck. No.
so the humble and giving preface is always a good important thing, right? Hi, I just want to say I hope this doesn't take any offense by you. Like I hope you don't take any offense to this, but I just find you absolutely gorgeous, and I would love to be able to perhaps go out to dinner or maybe coffee. I just wanted to meet you.
Yeah, yeah. Like, so that is,
Couldn't be lighter.
well, I
But
hope
that
so.
takes balls, though.
Well,
That's
the
what I'm trying
problem
to
is
say.
I need to be able to feel that that's okay. So which means I need
know.
practice. I need practice to do that in enough situations where I'm comfortable that that's socially acceptable. And then, yeah, that'll be perfect. But like you said, I just need women friends to do
Yes,
that kind of stuff with,
I was
to
just about to
build the
go.
level of comfort. And
Yeah, I was about to go back to that. That actually is the full solution.
yeah,
You don't want to learn how to talk to women from men.
yeah.
You want to learn how to talk to women from women. Why? Because it's cleaner. It's going to get you much further, right? Otherwise,
Well,
there's all
the
these
most
stupid.
important part is that it feels genuine. Like to me, if they
Yes.
tell me it's okay, it's more likely that I'm going to feel like it's okay. Where like if
Yes.
you tell me, it's like that doesn't help at all. Like no,
Well,
I'm
I
not going to be
wouldn't
like,
yeah. Well, I wouldn't mislead. I wouldn't send you off and say the fire is actually cold. That's not the type
right.
of person I am. But I understand exactly what you mean, and there's nothing I could teach you or talk to you about that would be better than a girl directly telling you from a direct experience, for sure. But I think you're onto something with the cacao ceremony, because these spiritual circles are a lot more conducive for that type of stuff. Everyone's coming somewhere because they want to grow. They want to become something different, right? What they just want to be more like, let's just say, more spiritual. But ultimately, what everyone finds there is the community. How many people are average at these cacao ceremonies you go to?
12, 13.
Okay, and probably 8 are women and 5 are guys, 6 are guys, right? It's more women than men.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And 2 of them are very stereotypically attractive.
Okay. I really believe that the purpose of your intention before a ceremony is what you really want to receive. It's like the moment of truth, right?
Okay.
And I've, at the moment, I tell everyone before an ayahuasca ceremony, I say, listen, right now we're going to share the reasons why we're here. Please understand this is a safe space. Nobody's here to judge anybody. And if anyone does judge anyone, they're going to have to answer to Mother Ayahuasca during the ceremony in 30 minutes from now. And you'd be surprised how honest people are in those moments. And everyone's holding space for everyone else in those moments. Why? Selfishly. Why? Because they're hoping that when it comes time for them to share their vulnerable moments, that same energy is going to be sent back to them.
Yeah,
No better place.
I really appreciate your advice on
No
that.
better place.
And I think that's definitely something I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try to do that at the next cacao ceremony. I think being more genuine about my intention is a good
Yes.
idea. So I appreciate your advice on that.
No problem, brother. One thing you have to do also is when you say that, hold the cacao right to the heart, right? And say that with your eyes open, your eyes closed. And when you drink the cacao, just take a deep breath with that energy, that feeling, as if you received it. Like, I have this energy, this knowledge, or this wisdom, whatever you want to call it. Right? Take a breath and then drink the cacao in for that reason, for that. And when you open your eyes, that's what's going to happen.
Sounds like a worthwhile thing that I'm going to definitely try.
Yes.
At the next one. So thank you for that.
Good. And if not there, do it there, because that is your number one intent. I mean, you basically say there's one thing that you need in life right now. And so there's only one reason why you're doing anything.
Yep.
And what better place than in a ceremony of any kind, whether it's if you're coming to drink ayahuasca with me, I would tell you to say something very similar to, Mother Ayahuasca, please open up any channels within me that I need, so that I can receive that which I desire the most, and that I can help find the thing that I'm looking for within myself. Because if we can find, for example, courage within ourselves, we're going to find courage outside. If we're going to be able to find wholeness, they say like hurt people. And a lot of times when you see people getting into these relationships, sometimes, Tom, you should look at it in the opposite perspective. Instead of getting into 10 or 15 relationships where you thought you were in the right relationship, you got crushed, maybe you would have thrown yourself off the building. So perhaps in your reality, it was better that you only had one or two of those experiences. Otherwise, it'd be too hard for you to deal. Look at one or two that you've dealt with is hard enough. Imagine 8. Maybe you wouldn't have made it.
It was the opposite, actually. So I was actually, my arrangement, my last relationship, she was super horribly emotionally abusive. She was worse than the girl who I took those sleeping pills for, but because I got to have sex with her essentially, and she was really, really attractive. Now, even though we've broken up, my mental health is significantly better than having never been in a relationship at all. So even terrible abusive relationships, if they're with someone I'm attracted to, significantly help me to heal and learn and grow.
Yes, but that goes back to that interaction that you were talking about, needing to receive the experience that you needed to gather. So if you were at a scale and you were here, and no matter how bad it was still interactions. Now you're here, and so you're further along, closer to your goal of being able to walk up, and play the numbers game, in essence, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What I was more referring to is the fact that, like, girls that grow up with abusive fathers find abusive men. With men that watch their have an alcoholic mother will find alcoholic women. These type of familiarities. Like, that's what I was more referring to in that. But no better place than the cacao ceremony, ecstatic dance, or any of these things. All these things will have an intention at the beginning, for sure. If it's a ceremony, they'll have the intention at the beginning and tell the truth.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. What was ecstatic dance? What is that?
Ecstatic dance is it's a great question, man. This is the hardest thing we talked about all night to explain what that is. Ecstatic dance is usually involving cacao, or I don't know what people are taking, but there's like some DJ or music, and they're like, whatever you do, just like let the energy flow through your body, and everyone's just dancing around. I'm sure there's something near you, ecstatic dance, but it's basically, you just let go, like it's like a dance party, but it's like a spiritual dance party. I don't personally go to that myself, but people love it. People take cacao. A lot of times people take mushrooms, and they just, they dance. and it seems to be very popular.
Yeah, I was gonna searching like because the way I found the cacao ceremony was just searching like meetups and stuff. So I was gonna like if there's like ecstatic
dance. I'm sure there is. There has to. I'm sure there's ecstatic dance cacao.
Minneapolis.
What else would there be? Minneapolis, Minnesota. There has to be. There's no way there's not. They're usually like in yoga studios. There's a DJ.
Yeah, I think I found one.
Yeah, of course. They're everywhere. Are you gonna dance? Like you're gonna like let the?
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
I hate dancing, but I'll give it a shot.
I mean, I don't know if it's really dancing. There are some people are like actually dancing. Some people are just like, just moving, like just it's it's a judgment-free place for people to express themselves through physical movement. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a judgment-free place because when you see how some people are moving, you're like there's,
it's not smooth.
I've it'll be, but again, it'll be good for you.
Cool.
For you.
It's great chatting with you. Appreciate the
T-Jump.
time.
We'll stay connected, and definitely we'll do a ceremony soon. Huh? You come to my ceremony. I make sure you're taken care of. I promise you that.
Sure.
Properly, right? And we'll see if we can have a spiritual experience. And if not, then you're gonna have an amazing experience, right? Something else to talk about, but I'm gonna try to help deliver that spiritual experience. And I do appreciate you. I appreciate your. I think you have a lot to offer this world. I think that you're onto something.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. I really appreciate your advice at the end. Those are the topics that, like I said, are the ones I'm most interested in genuinely. And so I appreciate having that conversation because it's not something I normally do. And appreciate you inviting me on your show to have a chat. And
we'll stay in contact. I'll message you my number. We'll stay in contact, and I'll do some due diligence on. I think you need to maybe go to like a retreat. Like, well, I got you.
Cool. Sounds good. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a nice night.
T-Jump at T-Jump, Instagram, YouTube. I suggest everybody.
One last thing. I wrote a book. It's published now on morality. I just published it this month, a few weeks ago. So
on morality.
Mm-hmm. It's the title is Objective Morality Without a God ? And it's a co-authored between me and Rick Mattson. We talked about, he's a Christian. I'm an atheist, and we talk about the different views of morality and contrast which one is a better description of objective morality.
Okay. I'm writing that in here. I have an organization, a nonprofit organization called the Universal Theognostic Society. The concept is a philosophy of theognosis. Theognosis in the Greek definition, theo meaning supreme creator, and gnosis, which is a wisdom through a direct experience. And so the whole concept of that is to obtain and to experience a wisdom of a supreme creator, which it would be like the proverbial Jacob's ladder. There's no end to that. It's just the idea of an ascension of consciousness. So wisdom of a supreme creator through a direct experience. My perspective of that is every prophet, messiah, messenger that have religions created about them had some form of a direct experience, whether it's a burning bush of Moses, the drink Homa, which is Middle Eastern ayahuasca through the Magi's and Zarathustra, whether it's Padmasambhava, where all of these people were messing with plants as medicines. And these religions were built off of sometimes good visions, sometimes bad visions of people. And we have 3 A's: the awareness, the ascension, the awareness, the awakening, and the ascension. For example, oh man, I need to lose weight. I'm too fat. Okay. So the first step to losing weight is not trying to lose weight. The first step to losing weight is stop getting fat, right? Stop the car. It's easier to turn around. You don't just make a U-turn on the highway, right? And so the first declaration is the awareness, and with the abracadabra, speaking it. I want to stop my aggression, right? And so you make that declaration. Next thing you know, you're driving down the highway tomorrow. You see a car, he cuts you off, and you want to flip, right? You see it ahead of time, the opportunity. And instead of doing what you normally would have yesterday, today, You have seen it ahead of time, your awareness. So you became aware of it and you ascend today past where you were yesterday. And eventually the matrix molds into a way where there's no more temptation. For example, I don't drink alcohol. So you know what happens? No one offers me alcohol. 10 years ago, it was the temptation. Now, no one offers me alcohol. Why? Because my core, my beingness has ascended alcohol. And so those are the 3 A's with that: the awareness, the awakening, the ascension, theonosis, the wisdom of a supreme creator through a direct experience. My book of poetry and philosophy, T-Jump, I'm going to send it to you.
Appreciate it.
And please send me the message of your book, and I'm going to send it on my email list to my organization. We have like 10,000 members in my organization, more than that. We'll send it off, and I strongly recommend the book. If you have an audiobook, I would appreciate it. As I told you, I can't really read like that.
Yeah.
Do you have an audiobook?
No, I just use text to speech on the Wordle.
Okay. All right. Send me a message about the book link and we'll get that out there. And T-Jump, let's have another conversation, and you and I are going to stay in contact. I'm going to make suggestions and recommendations because I like you.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know if you're doing an ayahuasca thing in Miami with the Instagram models. Let's do it. That sounds great.
Well, I didn't say the Instagram model thing, but
hey, don't crush my dreams, man. No dream crushing.
No.
This is a safe space.
These circles have beautiful. Of course, they're gonna have beautiful people all over them. Of course, I spent over a decade serving medicine in 16 countries. So I was in L.A., New York, Miami, Monaco, London, Rome, Kiev, everywhere you can imagine. So, and of course, there were beautiful women everywhere. I just can't only. Whoever comes, but it turns out that more women are interested in self-help and spiritual growth and personal development than men. And so if you want to find actually good people to actually create a platonic relationship to actually receive something from, you'd be surprised how much you have to offer in those relationships. Perhaps some people want to learn. Women are more stimulated from the mind in a long-term relationship aspect than they are just from the pure physical aspect of it. And you're a very, very, very smart person. So I think you need to also start, whereas you're thinking about what you're missing, I think you should start looking at positives. Like, why are people talking to me? Why? I don't even want to talk to people. I just told this guy flat out that I don't even know when my parents were married. So why? Right. And the answer is because you do have a lot to offer. So we have to start counterbalancing that. And guess when that's going to happen, T-Jump? When you exercise free will and declare it so.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate it. I'm going to have to go because I have to wake up at 5 a.m. for job number 1 tomorrow.
Talk later.
Yeah, have a good night. Let me know.
Take care. 100%. We're in contact.
Definitely. All right.
Talk soon.
See you later.
Yep. Thank you so much.
You too.